Hey everybody, Tom Media Director Steve Brogan here. How you doing? I have a special show for you we're going to do today. We're going to be talking with Danielle Maccheroni from the town's conservation department, and she wants to give a bunch of info and get feedback about the town's stormwater management plan.
Yes.
So we're going to get to that in just a second. Just quickly, I want to remind everybody, if you want to watch this broadcast, Facebook, YouTube, tyngsboroughma.gov, and Comcast 8 and Verizon 29. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to chime in and ask questions. I'm actually going to go click on right now, turn on the right mouse. There we go. Turn on the comments. So if you guys have questions about the stormwater thing, feel free to ask them. I'm sure there'll be some. I'll have plenty for you as well. Hopefully. Let's see what I can come up with. But if you have questions, leave those there. So also don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. That helps us to get all this info up to your neighbors and relatives and whoever else sees your page. Helps it spread amongst the community. Otherwise, Facebook tends to kind of squish things down a little bit and not let us get too far. So that's where you guys come in. You can help us with that. So all that said, now let's talk to Danielle. So you have a whole presentation we're going to go through and a bunch of different stuff. This will be interesting. It's not a boring presentation. Preface it with that. But yeah, we're going to go through all this stormwater stuff. So start from the top, I guess, to get this rolling. What is the stormwater management plan? Why does it matter to the Tyngsborough residents?
Sure. So the stormwater management plan is outlining our town's plan for compliance with an EPA permit that we're required to fall under. And it's essentially a 5 to 10 year plan for what activities we're going to undertake to comply with the permit, and who's going to do those activities in town, and which year are they going to take place in. So that plan itself is posted on the website. It's a little bit long. So I do encourage people, if you want to review it, to try and do it electronically. Of course, you can always come in or email me and pick up a hard copy as well. But it is a lengthy plan. But
so the ultimate goal though of this is to protect our freshwaters. Is that the from all the stuff that gets washed into the basins and everything, basically?
Yeah. So I mean, actually, I might I'll kind of start with this slide. What is stormwater? Which is basically any water that falls onto our land, our roads, your yards, and it then washes into our catch basins and flows to a wetland, a river, a stream, our lakes. It really flows straight to a water body. So what's happening is that's picking up pollutants, oil that might, naturally be on the roads just from cars driving. It picks up any fertilizer that you might have used on your lawn. It picks up bacteria if you don't pick up your dog waste, or if there's geese on your property. And it brings it straight to our streams and rivers.
Geese. I hate those things. Angry geese that chase me on the golf course. Buggers. All right. So what are the stormwater management plan is to protect all that stuff, protect the natural resources, if you will.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
What obviously humans have an effect on it. What we do and what's not even all humans. It's the geese too. I'll get you one of these days.
That's a tough one. The geese are a tough one.
Those geese bed, I'll tell you, they're brutal. I have a bed with those guys, but that's another story for another day. So what are the activities now that you would be going through that the plan sort of like outlines when and where you're supposed to do them and stuff?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the whole point of this is to improve our water quality. Water quality improvements. Under the 2003 permit, there's kind of 6 activities that EPA brought up. And that's education and outreach, public involvement, which this is part of, is asking the public for input about our activities and incorporating that if it's appropriate. And
that's where you guys come in, by the way.
Yep. So feedback is welcomed. Another big part of it is an illicit discharge detection program. So making sure there's no illicit connections to our storm drain system.
Does that happen? Do people like tunnel through the ground and connect up to the thing? How does that work?
So sometimes it's accidental. So a house that might have been constructed in the years ago may have, when these regulations weren't in place, may have a pipe that's connecting directly to a storm drain.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
So there's historical precedence for it.
Yeah, or a business that might have, that may be having like soaps or surfactants going straight into the storm drain. So that's the type of thing that you could detect through this program.
Interesting. You have to then do some like detective work to figure out where that's coming from, right?
Correct.
You can't just see the pipes. It's underground.
The way EPA has it set up, if there's an outfall that's flowing during dry weather, we need to trace that flow upstream and find out where it's coming from.
Okay.
And if it's coming from a private property, then that person has a responsibility for fixing it. If it's coming from a municipal property, then we'll have to fix it. So we have to inspect all of our outfalls within 3 years, and then again every 3 years. So you have 3 years to do your whole town inspections.
How many? I'm trying to think of the right question here. How many outfalls do we have? Like, what are these, like pipes that stick out of the side of the thing over the river? That kind of stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
These are the pipes that you probably see the catch basins all the time, which is the grates in the street that the water flows into. Those, almost all of those flow somewhere, although some of them are leaching catch basins.
Okay. So those do actually flow to the river. Most of those, then, right? Okay. All right. I guess I didn't really put the two together. That pipe was the same. The other end of the grate. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're testing that water for contaminants.
Well, so we're supposed to go out during dry weather, so no rain within 24 to 48 hours.
Has that even been possible this year?
No. No.
She's not kidding either.
So right now we're actually at the stage where you had kind of asked how many outfalls. We have about 140 of them mapped right now onto a map.
Oh, okay. There's a bunch.
We believe there's a lot more than that because there's many sections in town on our map where there's catch basins shown, but there's no outfall shown. So right now we're actually at the stage of going out in the field and trying to make sure that we've located all of our outfalls. While we're out there, if it's a dry weather day, we will perform a screening. But right now, our goal is to make sure that our map is complete. And we're also out there. You might see our interns out there taking measurements. We're also trying to find out how deep our catch basins are, because one of the other big requirements is they cannot be more than 50% full with sediment, or you need to clean them more often. So that's in our plan as well.
Right. I never really think about what ends up going into those catch basins. So you've got the sand and whatever doesn't dissolve in the winter times, all that stuff.
Yep. Leaves.
Leaves and sticks. And what about like motor oil, that kind of stuff? Car pollutants, I guess, if you want to call it that. But like that kind of stuff, does that all end up in the drains as well, I imagine?
I mean, theoretically, yes. Yeah. But it would, if that was being carried with stormwater into the drain, then it would flow still with the stormwater into the wetland, and what would be left behind is the debris, essentially.
Okay.
But you never know. They do recommend testing your catch basin cleanings before disposing of it to make sure that there's no hazardous materials in there, unfortunately. And at one point, our highway department had gone around and put do not dump drains to stream on all of the catch basins, just to make people aware that you
I've
cannot
seen the little
dump.
placards and stuff. Yeah.
But a
You
lot
should never dump stuff down the storm
never
drain. Ever. It's bad.
But a lot of it has faded off, so they're actually going to be. That's something that's on their list to go out and do again as we implement this permit. But that type of thing I'm talking about with street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, that actually falls under one of the other requirements of EPA, which is what they're calling a good housekeeping or a pollution prevention requirement.
Okay.
And then they also have a construction stormwater management requirement, because there's an acknowledgement that a lot of stormwater and sediment comes off of sites during active construction. So we need to get a better handle on that.
Interesting. That makes sense. Yeah, right. You're tearing up the soil, so there's going to be all kinds of just loose dirt flowing everywhere in the rain. And interesting. That's an interesting aspect. What's the depth of a storm drain? How deep are they?
We
never tried to jump in one, so.
No, that's a good question.
Never thought to stick my tape measure down.
Please don't.
No, yes, please don't do that. That's bad.
So they vary according to the catch basin and the location. We went out and
I'm just trying to think of like how much do they hold material, because I've seen the truck going around. He was sucking them out earlier this year. This is kind of interesting,
Some are shallow. I think so. We measured a couple during our trial field day the other day, and they were less than 8 feet. I'm trying to think of what it was, but maybe 6 feet, something like that.
These are reasonably deep. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize they were that deep. I thought they were just a couple feet.
Yeah. So some of them are pretty deep, and I think so we're looking to get a measuring tool, I guess, that goes up to 16 feet deep. So there are some that, based on topography, may be a lot deeper if the ground is sloping downwards. Yeah.
So all right. So the basically the gist of this is to go around. Is that all more or less as far as the mechanical aspect, I guess, if you will? Like, it's just the storm drains. That's what affects this whole stormwater management plan, or is there more to it?
Well, so essentially EPA wants the towns to have a better handle on their infrastructure, on their storm drain infrastructure, on where it is, on what's going into it, what's coming out of it. So that's a big part of it. Secondarily, there's these other issues that they want the town to have a better control over too, which is sedimentation and your own properties. They don't want you to be over salting. They don't want you to be blowing leaves into a wetland. So there's a whole nother set of requirements that you need to have O&M procedures for all your town-owned properties, including open space, including parks and rec.
Oh, wow.
And it has to have requirements in it that where you're going to put the leaves and grass.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a requirement that's related to maintenance activities because there's an acknowledgement that these materials like leaves and grass can cause nutrients in our water bodies. And the Merrimack is impaired for phosphorus in Lowell. Okay. And EPA is assuming that that impairment is coming from Chelmsford, Tyngsborough, and any other communities that are immediately or even further away, but draining into the river before it hits Lowell.
Okay. So 2 questions for you. What causes the phosphorus? And then I guess what, bringing this back to sort of the resident aspect of it, what are some things that residents can do to help to mitigate some of these things or help, not create extra stuff going into the stormwater?
Yes, definitely do not use fertilizer with phosphorus.
Okay.
If you put that onto your grass, first of all, it could be running directly off, especially into our lakes if you're around the lakes. If you put that on
there's a ton of.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So those are some of our high priority areas right now for beginning inspections. If you put that material onto your grass and then you put your grass over near the edge of your yard, but it's very close to a wetland or a storm drain, and then that's leaching out into the storm drain or into the wetland, it's carrying additional nutrients into the water body. Even if you don't put it into your grass, the fertilizer onto your grass, the leaves that fall naturally, EPA is assuming could be causing some of those nutrients to be in our water bodies as well. So that's why they're requiring a new bylaw that is you're not allowed to blow any leaves into the street or into a catch basin or.
That drives me mental when people put their leaves in the street.
Yeah, it's also a safety hazard almost.
Right, you cover. Yeah, don't do that,
so,
please.
I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
It drives me nuts.
I know.
It's very annoying.
Sometimes it seems maybe it's people doing who are doing the landscaping and just trying to clean things off at the end.
Yeah,
but
and I get it. Yeah, but it's like snow. You don't throw it in the middle of the road because you wouldn't throw a pile of snow in the middle of the road. You're creating the same hazard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So definitely, and also for homeowners, when we've been out doing some of our trial inspections, I know there's not a lot of space in Tyngsborough to put your yard waste, but almost everywhere we've looked, there's yard waste dumped into near a wetland or on top of outfalls.
What about the town creating maybe like a composting area where you could come and bring just all that refuse? And
yeah, that's a great question. We actually had at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday. 2 citizens who requested to form a sustainability committee. Yep. With one of the first things that I believe they want to work on is creating a composting area in Tyngsborough. Currently, right now, it is listed as not allowed in our bylaws, so there will be some hurdles to jump over.
Really?
It sounds like
to have a composting area?
It's listed in the same category as kind of a waste type of pile.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So
that makes sense.
We'd obviously need to locate an area or a couple areas, pick the best area, but there will also probably have to be a bylaw change, which obviously, I'd be in supportive of given the amount of yard waste that people really have nowhere to put. So you're putting it on the edge of your yard. It can be tough, yeah. But there's wetlands over there, and so it's all, leaching into the wetlands.
Do you find, so we'll move on to the presentation in a minute, but I just want to ask another question. Do you find that in general, talking to residents, they're receptive of this? They're not trying to go against it. I mean, they generally kind of fall in line with this kind of stuff.
In terms of
and
the
understand.
Stormwater?
Well, just in terms of listening to hopefully finding non-phosphorus fertilizers and maybe not piling your yard waste next to the lake or next to the stream or whatever like that. Finding another area or something. Do you find people have been pretty good about it?
I think so. I mean, I haven't done any direct kind of door-to-door education, but I've met with the lake groups. I went out to the Long Pond last lake group, and they did ask, what's the if you could tell me 2 things to tell my neighbors not to do to improve the water quality of Long Pond, what would it be? And that was the number one thing is not to use fertilizers with phosphorus in it, because it's also contributing to aquatic weed growth in our ponds, which we
Right,
treat
which is a
all
big
of them.
problem. Yeah, that's a big one. That's the reason for all those weed treatments when they do. And
Yes.
they just did one in was it Long Pond? I think they just
Long
did.
Pond, yep,
Yeah,
Muscuppick,
and they have to do
Massapog.
Flint and Massapog. Right. Yeah.
So the nutrients could be causing, I mean, those are invasive species, so they're going to
Right.
grow.
But the nutrients aren't helping them. I mean, or rather,
Correct.
they are helping them grow
They
better.
could, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. So there you go. So there's a couple things for you guys to think about, residents, just to maybe find some non-phosphorus options. There's tons of them too. My goodness, there's so much fertilizer out there. It's not even funny.
Also, pump your septic. That was the other message.
Oh, okay. Pump your septic
So
system.
we
What does
are-
that have to do with the
Well,
stormwater?
so
now?
we're required by EPA, because the Merrimack is impaired for bacteria and for phosphorus,
Okay.
to specifically educate residents and anybody in town on how to reduce bacteria and phosphorus going into our water bodies. So the first message we tried to do in association with the health fair was the importance of picking up your dog's waste, given that could run directly into our streams and water bodies as well. And another mandated message from EPA is the importance of maintaining your septic system, because if the septic system is in failure or not pumped correctly, nutrients could also be leaching from that into our water bodies as well, causing bacteria or other impairments into the water.
So there's a lot of stuff that can cause issues. Interesting. Wow. All right. Do you have, and you said on the website you have a list of all the, do you have a basic breakdown list of all the things that you can do to kind of help?
So we
Things
started,
to avoid, best practices, that kind of stuff.
so we do have an overall stormwater brochure. That's not necessarily a targeted message. It's kind of like the top 10, 12 things that a homeowner could do.
You don't have to read through the whole
Yep.
stormwater minute. This is what I was getting at.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. So and Jason has set up a stormwater page for us, so we're starting to put all of our materials on there. So if you look up Tyngsborough Stormwater, that's where we're starting to make sure that all of our plans are on there, our bylaws, and any education and outreach materials.
I was trying to put up your septic smart slide and kept my computer kept flipping back to the thing. There we go. I think I got it locked in now.
Yeah.
So there we go. So yeah. So septic. That's interesting though. I didn't think about septic system and the issues that can cause.
Yeah, and thankfully
That's pretty
around
interesting.
many of our lakes now, there's the option of sewer.
Okay.
And most
Which is good,
recently
yeah.
Flints. Yeah, and that's why a lot of the lakes are targeted for that,
Okay.
because it can also lead to nutrient growth in the ponds. Because if there's nutrients leaking in there, then it can make those aquatic weeds grow even more.
It's interesting. I never really thought about, and this is making me think more about it, like all the people who go and live around lakes and stuff. To live, it's a beautiful spot to live, of course. You get water access and everything. But then how, when you live there, how you affect the environment overall. You have to be mindful of a couple of extra things. It's interesting. I mean, I learned we had sewer in Lowell for my entire life, and then we moved to a house with septic, and I'm like, what is going on? You have to learn a whole new way to do stuff. It's kind of interesting, but it's sort of like on that idea. Pretty interesting stuff, though. Cool.
Yeah.
So don't forget, let me recap real quick. We're doing a program on stormwater management. This, I'm sure, will be rather interesting for a lot of folks to want to watch later on. So if you're watching on a mobile device, it's probably not as easy. But you can watch this video later on Facebook and on YouTube and at tyngsboroughma.gov, so you can watch that there. Watch it on the beauty of your full-size TV screen if you'd like to. All right. So what else do you want to get to before we start getting into like your presentation and the slides and stuff?
No, that's probably it. I mean, I just wanted to let the town know that we were covered under a permit for 2003. We were in compliance with that permit from EPA. We have a general map of our system, but this new permit and this new stormwater management plan has probably over 200 requirements that our town is going to have to be
200.
keeping up with.
And is that your responsibility to maintain that we're on track and on, following all the requirements and stuff?
So, yes. So right now it's kind of split between highway and conservation department.
Okay.
And, it's going to be a collaboration between multiple departments. In most towns, the DPW takes the lead, I think I mentioned before, and we don't have that, so we're still kind of figuring out how it's going to work in Tyngsborough. We're hoping that if and when we get the new engineer on board, that they're going to be assisting with a chunk of this as well.
Okay.
So,
because it's a big job. It's not small. This isn't small potatoes.
right.
This is a decent-sized project.
Right. And so, I mean, that kind of leads into the plan a little bit, because what it really does is outline who's going to do what in your town.
Interesting.
And,
All right.
and
That's good to know.
the plan can obviously change if you feel like one department that's, assigned a task and it's not working. You can update your plan each year. You just have to let EPA know. But so I might just jump right in here to the permit Well, I guess we kind of already did the permit at a glance in terms of increased site inspection, outfall inspection, reducing phosphorus.
Hang on, which page are you on? Oh, there we go. I think I got it. Permit at a glance?
Yes.
That's the one you're on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to show you guys this so you can read along if you'd like.
Fully mapping the system. Some of the big costs of this new requirements. One of the biggest costs is the requirement to sweep the streets twice a year.
Okay.
It turns out that's
the biggest cost.
Costly.
I mean, that's not that bad though, if you think about it. It's costly though. You said to do. You were saying
it costs about $30,000 when we outsource it.
Really?
To sweep the streets.
Wow, I had no idea.
There's other.
My goodness.
I know.
I didn't realize it was that much. I mean, that's not like a ton of money in the scheme of town stuff, but
right.
Wow, okay.
Right. No, I know, but it's a big chunk,
Okay,
and that's why some towns have looked into purchasing their own street sweeper. There's other options, but you need to have additional staff to be able to do that. So we're
right.
not.
Yeah, somebody has to drive it. It's not automated.
Right.
Yeah.
It can take a while.
Okay.
So and actually, even bigger than that, the cost. Some costs would be down the line. If we're still considered a phosphorus impairment town, we'd have to actually retrofit municipal properties to reduce our phosphorus, which is also assumed to be one of the biggest costs. So you'd look at your property, you'd see if there's any new stormwater infrastructure that you can put in that infiltrates the water and treats the phosphorus before it gets to a wetland.
I mean, I feel like our area is going to have a hard time though, because we have 2 golf courses, which they fertilize a couple times a week, I think, right? I don't know if they're using non-phosphorus, though. That'd be a good question actually to ask them. But that's interesting.
Yes.
So does that fall? I'm kind of wondering too. Like, does the town own that many properties that we would be are we the biggest phosphorus producer? I guess.
Well, that's one of the kind of criticisms of the permit.
Okay.
Is that you might not be getting the biggest bang for your buck for some of the.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
That you're doing here. Yeah. So we are actually looking into doing some phosphorus testing for the town and see where the phosphorus is coming from.
Okay.
Which you have to do anyway in year 4, but we're kind of interested in doing it a little bit sooner, actually. We want to know how much phosphorus is Tyngsborough contributing. Is it a major phosphorus contributor? And if so, where is it coming from?
Right, yeah. Because if you could isolate a certain area or business even, and then you figure out, you mitigate from there.
Right.
That seems like it would make more sense than just saying, like, you as a town, you have to put in all this stuff, even though you were like maybe 10% of it. I'm guessing. Obviously, I don't know the number really, but
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they may they may give us credits for example, if and I don't know the specifics of this, but if we were able to certify that the golf courses were willing to or were using phosphorus-free fertilizer, that may be something that would give us some credit.
Okay.
If it's a huge reduction, and maybe we don't have to put anything structural in place. So
right. Go for the low-hanging fruit as opposed to like let's dig holes and build stuff.
Right. Right.
That's not cheap.
So we're still working on those estimates, and part of the issue is in determining the cost and everything is how much phosphorus is really coming off, because this phosphorus requirement is what's really driving some of the costs for the permit.
Okay. So what's sticking out in my mind anyways for this so far is there's really 2 kind of main things. Well, 3. One is the residents can do a lot to help, right? Obviously living around a water body or something, you can make a big difference. 2 is there's no way to know really the cost overall, because we don't even know where the stuff is coming from necessarily. And then to implement it, like, again, you still wouldn't know what the overall cost is until they said, all right, you have to implement this. So you're not going to be able to say, like, it's going to be $10 billion or something. It's not actually going to be that much either. I'm kidding. But and then the third part, I think, was until you do the research, you don't know. There's a lot of what ifs still.
Well, yeah. So
right?
Tyngsborough's in a unique spot. So most people who might have a phosphorus impairment, there might be a stream or a brook running through your town. You're not going to get out of that. Not that we're trying to get out of it, but we may be able to pinpoint if it's coming from a portion of town, for example. These phosphorus impairments, then we may not have to sweep the whole town twice a year. We'd only do the section of town that the impairment's coming from. So it's just we're in a unique spot because the actual impairment's in Lowell, not in Tyngsborough, and so we're trying to figure out what type of rather than having a tributary running through our town that's 100% impaired for phosphorus, knowing that it's coming from our town and nowhere else. We're in a little bit of a unique spot for that. But if you want to flip to the slide, impaired waters in Tyngsborough, it'll show you what our impairments are.
Here we go. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a little bit of it's showing up two slides per page. I see. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I can zoom in here.
it's
I'll
all
show
the
you.
ponds basically: Althea, Deep Brook, which is a brook, Flint Pond, Muscuppick, Lawrence Brook, Locust Pond, Long Pond, Massapug Pond, and the Merrimack River. These are all the impairments in our town.
So the Merrimack River's got E. coli and phosphorus.
Yes. Yep. And phosphorus is in Lowell. Yep.
I'm not a scientist or anything, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and just say check the golf courses. I don't know what they're using for fertilizer, but I mean that could be and could nip it in the bud right there.
Right. I mean, that's been one
could be a major
question that has come up at kind of EPA training is, well, what if we, how would you enforce it is one thing, but what if we ban, create a bylaw that bans phosphorus fertilizers from our town, and how much credit could we get for that? And so part of it's going to be tracking the levels and doing some water quality sampling.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a lot of science work ahead of you.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun, actually. All right, so what else? What's next?
So what's due this year for the permit? We have the stormwater management plan, which I'm just going to go over in a quick second in terms of who's going to be doing what. We have a written illicit discharge detection and elimination program.
Okay.
We have site plan review procedures and more enforcement sediment control measure procedures that is going to outline what we do when we look at a site for construction, and make sure it's in compliance. We have catch basin cleaning program procedures, street sweeping program, winter road maintenance program, and a stormwater treatment structure inspection and maintenance procedure. So all of these should be posted onto the website this summer. The draft is going to be completed by the end of the fiscal year, and they'll all be up there by the time our annual report is due for EPA, which is at the end of August, September timeframe.
Okay. Very cool.
So they'll be kind of under internal review from the end of, at the end of June, essentially. Each year there's new, you'll see on the website next year there's going to be operation and maintenance procedures due. So every year we have new procedures that are due, making sure that the town's really out, thinking critically about how we're maintaining our properties. So the stormwater management plan has this, public information component to it. They want to make sure that it's up for the public to review.
Which is where we come in as far as helping tell people about this stuff.
Yep, exactly. And so I did receive one comment so far just from the folks who are interested in doing some of the composting to say, can we kind of incorporate this and show in the plan that perhaps getting a composting facility in town and would help us reduce some of our nutrients, keep things out of the storm drains and out of the wetlands.
Right.
So that's something that we could add to our plan that we want, that we're going to pursue and that we would take credit for EPA if it got implemented as an improvement in our town.
Could then give the soil to the gardeners in town.
Exactly.
And it's a nice circle.
That's
right?
the whole.
You grow the vegetables. It's a circle.
It is. Yes, exactly. Just got to figure out that bylaw change.
Yes, right. Yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll get through the logistics.
Yep. So just a quick overview of the permit and who's doing what. Public education, conservation departments scheduled to take the lead on that, as well as public involvement, which we're doing right now. Illicit discharge detection and elimination would be a partnership between highway department, town engineer, and conservation. Although, being infrastructure related, highway will definitely be involved with that. Construction site runoff control, post-construction stormwater management is going to be a partnership between the conservation department and the planning department, who does site plan review and oversees all of our, special permits in town. And to that end, I suppose the building inspector would also be involved because he's signing off on those permits, making sure that the site's in good condition.
Okay. I imagine there's certain things they would have to have in place, those like hay bales and stuff like that to prevent
Oh, yeah.
runoff and all those things.
Yep. And what we're trying to get at is one of the issues now is, people have their site plan and they do a lot of work to prove that after the site is completed, it's not going to be causing any additional total suspended solids in our water bodies. They're making sure that they're not causing peak or flood flow to any other sites during peak rainfall events. And they have a lot of calculations to back that up. What we don't have now is anything in place that says if it takes you 2 or 3 years to construct your site, what's happening to that water during that time of construction?
Right, yeah.
Because a lot of these don't function at 100% till you are done and your vegetation is stable, your grass is growing, your trees are in place, then it's functioning at its full capacity. But you could have a couple years of open construction, and that's what we need to
It's an interesting
get a
aspect.
handle
I never
on.
thought of that. Yeah.
And post-construction stormwater management is on here as well. So
Okay.
we may be requesting, proof of inspections, which people are supposed to be doing of their sites and that type of thing. Pollution prevention for municipal operations and good housekeeping is what they call it. That's going to be pretty much highway department, and the town engineer will probably fall kind of in that area as well, but also a little bit of an administration, component, because if we are mandated to follow certain operation procedures for our buildings, that's kind of going to be what they're overseeing, is how are we managing our facilities and things like that.
Okay.
So really many different departments will be involved with the implementation of this. If you don't want to look at the whole permit, which I'm sure you don't, there's a 2-page summary of Tyngsborough's stormwater management permit requirements that I'll double check is up on the website. If not, I'll get it up there.
Okay.
It goes through each of those, areas. So education and outreach, illicit discharge detection, construction, good housekeeping, goes through each one of those, and it says what we're going to do each year and which department is going to do it. And but you'll see the bulk of it is highway department and conservation department, followed by kind of town planning and administration, and Board of Health is on here as well.
Okay.
So
So in all your time, you should go and sit and read the stormwater management plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can at least get a 30,000-foot view of it from the website. So that's good.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
read through that the pamphlet that you have as well. That'll be handy. Okay.
So if people have ideas on, for example,
I haven't seen any questions yet, by the way, guys. Let's go. Questions. Stormwater. Go.
Well, one thing I'm interested in from the public is what people think might be effective education measures for Tyngsborough.
Oh, okay.
What we know that people are passionate about the lakes. We know a lot of people live around the lakes. So, kind of going at that angle in terms of using our water bodies and keeping them clean is, what I'm guessing is going to really resonate with Tyngsborough residents. But if people have ideas, message ideas, flyers, pamphlets, anything really, we're open to that.
So there you go. Best ways to reach people, you guys on Facebook and wherever else, whatever other people, because not everybody's on Facebook or YouTube or watches TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and like the composting idea, like they called me up, and we're kind of making the connection between this composting pile and reducing nutrients. And so that's another idea. So anything
that's
that
a cool
you
idea.
have in terms of...
The only catch on that one, I feel like, is going to be how do you get the stuff from the people's houses to the compost? They'd have to bring it themselves.
They'd have to bring it,
Yeah, get a truck or something. Maybe some like kindly neighbor will load it into his pickup truck and ferret it away.
I mean, people... anyways who are doing it correctly, unfortunately, are paying right now to have their leaves picked up. So they're bagging them and paying.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think somebody comes around, but if you miss that, then you have to, there's not that many options. I think there's a place in Tewksbury they were saying, but you have to pay per bag, and it's very expensive.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, you'd have to bring your stuff there, and we, usually they have some kind of drop-off hours or something like that.
Okay.
So that's the permit in a nutshell.
Okay, that was.
It's a lot of work, and I'm going to accomplish it all on 5 hours per week.
So easy to do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, clearly that's not going to happen. It's a lot of work. You've got a couple interns at least helping you, so that's good.
Yeah, we have
some. Sure interns are always handy. Yes, very handy.
Yeah, so they're going to be doing a lot of the field work. If you see people out there poking into the catch basins with vests on, then that's them.
Yeah. Just watch out for them. Don't drive away from them. Give them
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Be careful.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap it up with the stormwater?
I think that's all. I'll try and come on kind of frequently as this permit kicks off in terms of what's due this year, what our status updates are, if there's any other public feedback we're looking for, that type of thing, and just to let people know when some of these new plans are up. And so we'll hopefully, keep everybody
We should
informed.
try to do maybe some field work too one day. We'll go out and do a video when you have one of these the outflow. I'd be curious to see one of these outflows. Like, I have the picture in my mind of what it is, but now thinking about it, I'd be curious. It might be something interesting. Residents might want to see that. Might be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And we can do some tips also.
Yeah.
How about that? As what not to throw in the storm drain. 0 things. Nothing goes in the storm drain but storm water. Very interesting.
Yes, just rain down the drain. That's the tagline.
Right. There you go. That's good. I like that. Just rain down the drain. Very nice. Okay, so we have our catch line for the program too. Very good. Quickly before we wrap up, I wanted to mention one thing. So Liz, I'm going to butcher her last name. I'm sorry, Liz Antavica. I think that's how you pronounce it. So she's on that sustainability committee, and they're looking for volunteers. So
great.
You mentioned it earlier in the broadcast. That's why I was like, I should make sure I mention this. So they're looking for volunteers. If you're interested, it's the sustainability committee. I would imagine just contact the town administrator's office, and you can get information on how you could sign up for that. But this is related to kind of recycling and the compost thing that we talked about, stuff like that could actually help with the stormwater management plan. So very cool. Very nice little segue there. All right, that worked out well.
I know.
All right.
Yeah.
So thanks, Danielle, for coming on.
Yeah.
Be in touch about when you want to come back on again.
Sure.
And we'll go from there.
Okay. Sounds great.
Very cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody watching, again, don't forget you can watch this broadcast a whole bunch of different places: YouTube, Facebook, TyngsboroughMA.gov, and Comcast 8, Verizon 29. There were no questions on the show, but that's all right. I'm sure you'll have plenty. You can email Danielle DiMaccheroni at TyngsboroughMA.gov. You can get that on the TyngsboroughMA.gov website. So if you can't spell Maccheroni, it's not the easiest one to spell. I've butchered it a couple times too, accidentally. Oops. But anyways, you can get that on the website. So that's it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys all next time. Get outside, enjoy it. It's a beautiful sunny day. I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.